All right. Moving to the farm. We got a nice little tractor here. Agriculture has a lot of pollutants that can possibly come out from different places. And then they also, in some areas they have different incentive programs. Like if you are using certain best management practices, you might get money from the government or from the state to put those things in place. But other than that, it's like coming from your own pocket. So that's why a lot of farmers don't use that, because it's more expensive or more of a pain. But what kinds of things would go into the water here?
Fertilizers.
Okay, yeah, so you might have some fertilizers. That's what we use, green, because we want it to be nice and green.
Are there sprinkles?
Yeah. Oh, we might use this on our lawns too. Make them greener, right? And on our goats. Okay, so you're gonna use some fertilizer. What else might you want to use on your crops? If you have a lot of like, there you go. So we'll use some more insecticides. Gross, kill the stink bugs or whatever else you need to get rid of. Potato beetles and things like that. Depends what you're growing here.
Flies.
Fly killer. We might have fly tape.
We could get owls though.
To kill the rodents, yeah. Okay. There's also going to be a lot of soil over here. So loose soil, if you've just tilled the ground, so tilling is just pulling it up, making some rows to plant your crop in. If that just happened before rainfall, it can present a problem. So we're going to have some rain, and you all probably know what's going to happen here. Maybe. I don't think the sprinkles are gonna move.
Put it on like the jet, like make it like more aggressive.
I don't want to spray.
She's fine.
Look this way.
Oh, I don't know.
It's getting. Oh, there we go.
Oh. You just killed the goat.
Eee, that's not looking too good then. Okay, there we go. Okay, guys, what are some things we literally could put in place here to prevent this from happening?
A wall.
Okay. So yeah, actually, farmers can build dams on their property that are leading into the creeks, and that's what would happen if you had a dam on a creek. You're stopping the water, so what's going to happen right before the dam?
You're going to get like a buildup of water.
Yeah. So you're going to have a buildup of water. Sometimes you get like a lake or a pond. We don't want that. But what we will have here is a wetland. So that means you can't use that area now to grow crops, but you are holding in your soil. This is actually really beneficial for farms, even though it's a pain because you can't grow there anymore. If you're losing your soil and your pesticides and all of your fertilizer, you're just wasting a lot of money, because it costs a lot of money to even have good soil with good amounts of nitrogen and phosphorus and all that stuff. So if we do that, you'll see what will happen here. We'll have this natural little like wetland there forming there. Okay, it might be more like a retention basin. I don't know if that Play-Doh is going to hold very well, actually. Flooding the farm. But yeah, I mean, it's being dammed there, so this would probably not be the best position for it, because now your road is wet and probably going to erode. But they might want to put it down a little lower, so it's down in the lower spot. So now you have a retention basin that's going to slow down the water, hold in the sediment, and then the water can keep going, and you keep all of your things on your field instead of going into the water. There's a couple other things, and this is going to be more useful to see a picture of, I think, but sheet erosion is like the first stage in a progression of erosion. So have you guys ever seen like big ditches in a field or anything like that? Maybe not, maybe you haven't been in a field very often. But the first stage is sheet erosion. That just means like all the splash erosion like we've seen here is getting taken off. If we would spray this field over and over and over again and there's actually soil, you would get the low spots turning into like little mini creeks almost. Okay, so that would be called rill erosion, R-I-L-L. So it creates little creeks kind of that are going into the water. This happens naturally. If you think of a mountain, you'll see like little creeks that have formed. And if you ever go hiking, you might see little ditches where the water has continuously gone through. So rill erosion's okay because you can till it, like they could till this field, go back and forth, and till up the soil, and it would almost look like nothing happened. But if real erosion continues to get worse and worse, you will have, I keep forgetting the name of this, gully erosion. So Gully, a gully is like a little ditch going through the field. And those can get really huge, and we'll see pictures of those at some point. But so that's an issue, erosion. Okay, what about your animals in here? What if your animals can go into the creeks to get themselves cooled off and drink water? What happens?
They're gonna die.
All the dirt.
They're not gonna die.
They-
goes in the water.
Yeah, all
Yes,
the,
okay.
like, grossness.
So they're gonna be peeing and pooping in the water.
Well, that's just.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get some pollution in there. Also
Right,
inside, so you don't only have like E. coli bacteria, you also have a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus going into the water. So that's not good. What else happens when a huge animal, especially an animal like this, is going in and out of soil area that might even be wet? So they're going down the banks. So they're gonna erode the banks, okay, because if they're stomping, they're like almost 2,000-pound animals, they're stomping in the soil. You have the soil coming down into the water, so there's more erosion. Another thing I've read about is like if you have trees along a creek, that's good because it holds in the soil, but it's also not great because then the cows and everything will gather around those trees, and they're going to erode those areas even more heavily than others, because in the summer they want to go down next to the trees and it feels great. Okay, but what are some ways to prevent like a cow from going in the creek? What's the easiest?
A fence.
A fence, okay. So oftentimes you'll have fences built up around this whole area. However, what if you want your cow to get water from the nice stream you have there?
Just give them a little area. Go down.
Yeah, actually that's a solution. So sometimes they will have one area where there's like not a fence, so they can go down into that area, or if it crosses the creek into another field, they'll just have one area. And they recommend having areas that are sunny, so that they're not gathering there, staying there for a long time, they just move through, because otherwise they're too hot. Other solutions would be to have like a solar water pump. So you would have this pump powered by solar power, pulling the water out and putting it into a tank nearby so that they don't go into the water at all. Depends how severe the problems are. And then if we go back to thinking about this field, you could put this in, what you suggested, like a dam kind of a thing. What else could you put in there next to the water area? Think about what we did in the construction site.
Like a basin or like something.
Yep, retention basin, okay? So you can have retention basins that hold the water. A vegetative basin is basically the same, or vegetative filter. Just means you have plants there, and it's usually in a lower area, so it collects the water. It's kind of like what we see here at Doc's campus. So like down there, if you've seen that one, that retention basin, or the one up here that we walked by past the turf before you got to the pond, they're gonna look like that. Rain gardens, so you're gonna plant plants that take in a lot of water, and you have to think carefully about that too. Okay. So one thing I didn't talk about much is when residential areas they're getting rid of things and you have insecticides and soaps and stuff, that's not point solution. It would be, anybody know what that one's called, opposite? It's just called non-point solution, non-point source solution. Pretty easy. Okay. Another thing is, what is all over the roads right now today?
Snow.
Salt.
Okay.
But salt is something that also is polluting not only the water system. So tonight is a good example, or today is a good example because it's going to rain, which is going to wash the salt into.
Put salt on the thing, and
Right.
then we just have the snow there, but we don't go
Exactly, that's true. But that's also a reason why they do that spray now. That brine, yeah. So that brine, it's not going to run off as easily. However, if you get a hard rainfall, it will. The salt is not only harmful for the water, because you obviously don't want salt in your freshwater system, too much of it anyway. But also along the roads, sometimes you'll see like dead vegetation or like brown vegetation, even after this winter season, and that's because it's too salty. So there's only certain types of plants that can grow alongside the road where there's a lot of salt pollution. Also, this is an impermeable surface, and actually the whole thing is because it's plastic. But in reality, roads are impermeable, which means you can't have water going through it. Instead, you have water running off of it. So in this case, you have lots of water running off. If you would have more like gravel roads, which we don't see much of anymore, that's actually good because it's a permeable surface. You'll have it running through rather than running off, and it'll go down through the soil. So if you have water going down through the soil and going to the groundwater, it can take like months for it to reach the groundwater. If you do this, it takes like minutes to hours just or less for that just to go into the water system. So you can see how much more force would be in that water versus going into the ground. Okay, I think that's it for today. So